Mr. Maheshwari, thank you so much for your time, sir. Help us understand the mood. This morning at least seems to be positive. Volatility is low, but the kind of gains that we are seeing pretty much coming from non-energy minerals as well as the industrial services space. What's driving the momentum there, sir?
Well, I think there is a bit of a positive momentum given that our Prime Minister had a chat with the US President.
Right.
And I think it is largely around the trade deal. But so I think the market is expected, some expectations are there. Basically, the trade deal is likely to happen in the next three months.
Okay.
So I think some amount of optimism is there that there is some progress being made. So I think market is becoming a bit more optimistic about that.
All right, some optimism around the India-US trade deal, but there are multiple other trade deals also that India has been negotiating. The India-EU free trade agreement as well as the India-New Zealand free trade agreement. These are deals that are also in talks on the verge of closure. How important are those deals for the sentiment on the Lal Street as compared to, let's say, the big-ticket US trade deal?
I don't think so. There is anything as significant as the US, given that the largest trading partner is the US, and we have a huge surplus as far as US is concerned. So till the US gets through, I don't think any other trade deals really matter, because those are all smaller trading partners. US continues to remain the largest trading partner for us.
Right, of course. So US taking precedence over other trading partners. Meanwhile, we are coming to the end of 2025. This was a year where we saw the Sensex as well as Nifty 50 touching and making those new all-time highs. And then we've seen a bit of a correction. In fact, quite a bit of a correction. In fact, Sensex right now is a good almost 1,000 odd points, 900 points below that lifetime mark. We didn't really find any positive momentum as far as the trade deal went when Sensex had touched that lifetime high. And now those corrections, do you expect that that there would be other triggers apart from just the India-US trade deal that investors should watch out for as we come to the end of 2025 and the beginning of 2026?
I think the biggest trigger would be basically the earnings and the current quarter. This quarter is supposed to be very good as far as consumption is concerned, given that the GST, full GST impact is going to come in. And this is the festive quarter also for the country. So I think next quarter, next a month and a half, I think the important thing is to watch out for the results.
Right.
And see how the consumption pattern is really shaped up after the GST cuts.
All right. So earnings in the context of GST cuts would be the triggers to look forward to, especially in the month of Jan. Meanwhile, the street has been abuzz, Mr. Maheshwari, with IPOs, and we are seeing an IPO a day pretty much. And today is the big one. ICICI Prudential AMC IPO opens. I'd like to seek your advice on what investors should do. Should they subscribe or not? But first up, some details about the IPO. It opens today, open until the 16th of December, and the allotment is going to happen on the 17th of December, listing on the 19th of December. Remember, the total size of the IPO is a whopping 10,602 crore rupees, with a price band between 2,061 rupees to 2,165 rupees per share, coming in lot sizes of 6 shares. On the first day of the open of the IPO, it is already attracting a grey market premium of about 5% or so. So, Mr. Maheshwari, back to you, sir. A company which controls an AUM of about 33,000 odd crore rupees, a market share of 20%, and solid net profits. In fact, last year it closed its books at about 2,600 odd crore rupees, and just the first half of this financial year, it has already raked in about 1,600 odd crore rupees, attracting a PU of about 33x. Your advice to investors, is this an IPO that they should subscribe to?
So, I have not done much study on that basis because I do not subscribe to IPOs. I really wait out and see basically how these IPOs post the listing basically perform a couple of quarters before I take a call on these.
Okay.
But ICICI Pru is the market leader, one of the market leader. I wouldn't say, I think SBI in terms of AUM, SBI mutual fund is the market leader, and then but the active equity funds, basically ICICI Pru is the market leader. Given the pedigree and all, I think if one is a long-term holder, definitely one should look at it. But I'm saying the only issue I see is the valuation. So I think these are all aggressively priced IPOs. One should be a bit cautious there.
All right. And how long before investors should understand that that the valuation has corrected to its normal market accepted levels? Would it be the first 1 week, the first 1 month into trade after the IPO list? What would be a good time frame for investors to make a calculated decision on whether they should buy the stock or not?
I think one should wait for a couple of quarters before taking a call on any IPO.
Okay.
So that is the way basically I look at it, because a lot of things basically which has not been discussed during the IPO. A lot of analysts start looking at the historical balance sheets, the numbers which have not been disclosed to public. So I think those numbers, once it goes through the scrutiny, I think a couple of quarters is a good time basically to understand whether to look at the company or not.
All right, wait a couple of quarters is the word coming in. Mr. Maheshwari, another headline that was all over yesterday was the Indian rupee slipping to its lifetime low of 90 rupees and 47 paisa per dollar. Remember, the Indian currency has tanked about 5% this calendar year against the US dollar. A lot of issues which are driving down the valuation of the Indian rupee, even as the chief economic advisor C. Anand Nageswaran says that the Indian rupee is massively undervalued. First up, of course, is the Trump tariffs, which have had a negative impact on India's exports, followed by, of course, the wide trade deficit on account of India importing oil as well as gold. Then, of course, the FPI outflow that we've seen not just on the Indian equity markets but also the bond markets, and lesser intervention from the Reserve Bank of India. Mr. Maheshwari, how do you view this tailspin that the Indian rupee finds itself in, and is it really something that that investors or people at large should be concerned about at the moment?
Definitely they should be basically, because that is what is driving the foreign institutional investors out, because one, you are losing money because of the rupee depreciation, and that is pushing them to sell, and it just goes into a tailspin basically, because one is driving the other. Now, I think everybody is waiting for the US trade deal to happen. And once that trade deal comes through, basically, I think that's the time I think the reset will happen. Okay. Whether we'll appreciate how much from that level is what we have to see.
Are we seeing lesser intervention from the Reserve Bank of India, sir? It used to be a little more aggressive. In fact, at least during the time that Shaktikanta Das was the governor, we used to see a lot more intervention in keeping the rupee's value in check. But are we seeing a lot less of that happening now? And if that's the case, why so?
I'm really not privy to that basically, so difficult to comment whether they were intervening earlier or not intervening now. But what I understand is basically is that this is a good strategy basically. The rupee has to find its own level. Okay. There is no point on unnecessarily propping the rupee up.
Right.
And it helps our exporters. So I'm saying basically it's also got its positives also.
Absolutely. So exports happen to be a positive for the Indian rupee pretty much being undervalued. Finally, before I let you go, some view from the commodity space. We also saw yesterday silver touching its pretty much lifetime high of 1,91,000 rupees per kg on MCX, and spot prices, at least in the metros, in some of the metros, had crossed 2 lakh rupees per kg. Even globally, there's been a new lifetime peak for silver at $63.25 per ounce. Now, of course, silver's use is not just ornamental, it also has industrial use, including EV batteries as well as electronic components, and all of this is driving up prices for silver. Mr. Maheshwari, do you think now that the US Fed has cut interest rates, is there going to be an impact on the massive buying that we've seen on silver and gold, or do you think silver's industrial use is going to continue to drive demand and we should expect the price to go up even further?
So there is no clear demand report which I have seen basically saying that because of the industrial usage, so much demand is there in the next few years for us to see this kind of prices on silver. Okay. It is more in the speculative territory basically. So one needs to be cautious. Yes, I agree with you that there has been a demand increase because of the semiconductor and the solar panel use, but there is no report out there saying that so much more silver is going to be utilized because of this thing. So not sure about this basically. And if you look at gold has no fundamentals basically.
Correct.
What gold used for except for jewelry?
Right.
So this is all I'm saying basically speculation and everybody claiming that the global bank, the Chinese central bank is buying and everything, all that. But I don't know how much of that is being driven by the Chinese buying.
All right, Mr. Maheshwari, thank you so much for your time. Let's leave it at that this morning, but always a pleasure having you here with us on News9.